Hello again, friends. This is part two of chapter three of A History of Expulsionism, Joy in the Bakumatsu Period. Okay, so I'm just about to share the manuscript. So we're starting from the Ikedaya incident. From the Ikedaya incident to the Kinmom incident. What was the political situation like at the time when Ryoma decided to build a navy? Since it concerns Ryoma's later actions, this point should be understood. After the coup d'etat Seihen of August 18th, 1863, Bunkyu 3, the Choshu clan advocated instant breach of the treaties and expulsion, Sokkon Hayakujoi, and began to aim for the overthrow of the shogunate, Tobaku. The clan was expelled, Haiseki, from the central government. Then it welcomed 7 nobles, including Sanjo Sanetomi, 1837 to 1891, restored its good name, and was then on the alert, Koshi Tantan, for the chance to establish supremacy again over the central government. However, although it petitioned many times, the Choshu clan was not permitted to enter Kyoto, and stalemate continued. During that time, in the spring of 1864, Genji 1, the Ikkai Soseiryoku alliance was born in Kyoto between Hitotsubashi Tokugawa Yoshinobu, 1837 to 1913, protector of the palace and defender of Osaka Bay, Kinrigo Shue Sotoku, Sekkai Bogyo Shiki, Matsudaira Katamori, 1836 to 1893, the head of the Aizu clan and protector of Kyoto, Kyoto Shugo Shoku, and Matsudaira Sadaaki, 1847 to 1908, the head of the Kuwana clan and governor of Kyoto, Kyoto Shoshidai. So it was no longer possible for the Choshu clan to be restored to power. On June the 5th, 1864, the Ikedaya incident occurred, which made the Shinsengumi famous. Many samurai, shishi, who were plotting to have Choshu restored to the central government, lost their lives, including Yoshida Toshimaro, 1841 to 1864, Sugiyama Matsusuke, 1838 to 1864, who were exceptional Choshu men of talent. They were concerned about the safety of Katsura Kogoro, 1833 to 1877, and rushed out of the domain residence, Hantei, where they encountered Aizu clan samurai, became involved with them, Makizoe wo kutte, and were killed. When the report of what had happened reached the Choshu clan, great anger boiled up, and there was a sudden move to lead soldiers up to Kyoto. 3 chief retainers, Karo, named Fukuhara Echigo, 1815 to 1864, Masuda Uemon Nosuke, 1833 to 1864, and Kunishi Shinano, 1842 to 1864, preceded the daimyo, Prince Seishi. Mori Sadahiro Motonori, 1839 to 1896, in leading their troops up to Kyoto and taking up position in that area. The main force, led by Kijima Matabe, 1817 to 1864, and Kusaka Genzui, 1840 to 1864, headed for the imperial palace, Gosho, on July 19th. This was the well-known Kinmon no Hen incident. For a while, the Choshu clan's fierce attack, like an approaching tiger, Kiko no Gotoku, broke through the Nakadachi-uri gate and entered the palace, but Satsuma clan troops came to the aid of the shogunate's army, Bakufugun, and the situation was instantly reversed. The Choshu army began to be routed. In only one day of fighting, the leaders, Kusaka Genzui and Terajima Chuzaburo, 1843 to 1864, who had been pupils of Yoshida Shoin, 1830 to 1859, at his school, Shoka Sonjuku, were lost to the clan. The Choshu clan turns from a predicament to the offensive. The Choshu clan was designated an enemy of the court, Choteki, because it fired on the palace in Kyoto, Gosho. And the Bakufu was given the imperial order, Chokure, to punish the domain. The former head of the Owari domain or clan, Tokugawa Yoshikatsu, 1824 to 1883, was appointed commander-in-chief, Sotoku, and the head of the Echizen clan, Matsudaira Mochiaki, 1836 to 1890, was second in command. A large force from 36 clans consisting of 150,000 men was assembled to punish Choshu and encircled it. Meanwhile, in August, the combined fleet of the 4 powers, Britain, the US, France, and the Netherlands, bombarded Shimonoseki, and Choshu was completely defeated. Within the domain, opinion was completely divided, and a conventional party, Zokuron-ha, was born, which advocated obedience and loyalty to the shogunate, Jubaku Kyojunha, and governed the clan. Because the conventional party government accepted the ritual suicide of the three chief retainers, Fukuhara Echigo, Masada Uemonosuke, and Kunishi Shinano, the transfer of Sanjo Sanetomi and the other nobles to other domains, and the destruction of Yamaguchi Castle, and thereby showed a loyal attitude, the army sent to punish Choshu, Sei-chogun, refrained from an armed attack and decided to withdraw their troops. This was because Tokugawa Yoshikatsu listened to the advice of Saigo Takamori, 1828 to 1877, who was a staff officer, Sambo, in his army. And the Satsuma clan was already distancing itself from the Bakufu. The Bakufu did not necessarily agree with the decision, which caused friction, atsureki, between them and the leaders of the army sent to punish Choshu. While this was happening, Takasugi Shinsaku, 1839 to 1867, raised an army, Kyohei, and overthrew the conventional party government, and early in 1865, Genji II, changing to KO1 on April 7th, and appealing to force of arms, formed a new anti-shogunal government called the Justice Party, Seigiha, resist the Bakufu and arm the clan faction, Kobakububiha. This was a situation which the Bakufu could not look on idly, and it was decided once again to punish Choshu. In May 1866, the shogun Iemochi himself entered Osaka Castle. In this situation, the Choshu clan had very urgently to procure weapons and warships. The method was for them to be purchased in the name of the Satsuma clan and then sold on to Choshu. The intermediaries for this transaction were Komatsu Tatewaki of Satsuma and Kondo Chojiro of Tosa. The true intentions of expulsionism as seen in Kondo Chojiro's Memorial to the Throne. At last, we can now investigate the activities, policy of the Kaientai, which reflected Ryoma's view of East Asia and in its management strategy may have had concealed influence on the diplomatic strategy of the Bakumatsu period. Let us verify this by examining the petition, Kenpaku, from Kondo to Komatsu Tatewaki and the subsequent letter to his superior, petition, Josho, which Komatsu submitted to the Satsuma daimyo Shimazu Hisamitsu, 1817 to 1877, December 23rd, 1864, Genji 1, in documents of the Tamazato branch of the Shimazu family, Tamazato Shimazuke Shiryo, Volume 3. At first, let us look at the process whereby Kondo presented the petition, Josho, to Komatsu. Kondo requested that the Satsuma clan purchase the union in the name of Choshu, and he was the central figure when the Satsuma clan handed it over to Choshu in August. The union was a wooden steamship of 45 meters length, displacement 300 tons, constructed in the Rotherhithe shipyard on the River Thames in England. Kondo had an audience with the head of the Choshu clan, Mori Takachika, 1819 to 1871, and his son Hiroatsu, in which he was thanked for his efforts. Manjuya Chojiro, the mochi and sweet shop owner, was meeting with the head of a powerful domain, Yuhan, and receiving his gratitude. They really were turbulent times, Ransei. The Mori, father and son, were honored, Hinki, by the shoguns Ieyoshi and Iesada, and had their names changed to Yoshichika and Sadahiro, each receiving one kanji character from the shogun's name. After the Kinmom Nehen, they were not only deprived of their official rank, kanyi, but were forced to surrender, henjo, their names received from the shogun and reverted to their original names, Takachika and Hiroatsu. In this book from now on, I will refer to them as they are usually known, i.e. Takachika and Sadahiro. Image number 12, Admiral King of the British Royal Navy with Mori Takachika and his son Sadahiro. When he had an audience with the father and son, heads of the Choshu clan, Kondo received a letter of thanks, Kanshajo, to Shimazu Hisamitsu, dated September 8th, and then he had an audience with Hisamitsu. In the letter was written, the details we have told to Uesugi Munejiro, that's Kondo Chojiro, so please hear them from him. This shows the unusual trust which the Mori father and son placed in Kondo. This is no doubt why he was also trusted from the first by Shimazu Hisamitsu. This is also probably why the petition, Josho, remained in Hisamitsu's hands. The petition is a very long document, but it is very important. As it is very important, I want to summarize its main points, Yoten. Kondo gave the following analysis and strongly lamented the situation. In Japan now, there is noisy commotion, there is rebellion, civil war, Nairan, in east and west, and people's hearts are very unstable. In addition, foreigners are sending their warships here at a fast and furious pace. The default clauses, Furiko Kajo, in the commercial treaties are to be criticized, and thanks to the attitude of the Bakufu, there is an immediate danger of war. In the land of the gods, Japan, it is natural, since the country was founded, that we should receive tributary envoys, Choko Shisetsu, from the four barbarians, eastern, western, northern, and southern and northern, make our military power known overseas, and increase our territories steadily. Kondo was affirming Japan as an oriental empire in East Asia. The basis for this was that the Empress Jingu Kogo, herself had led a navy to conquer the three Korean kingdoms, Silla, Paekje, and Goguryeo, and had built a city for Japanese people to settle in and overseen tributes from there. If the payment of tributes was neglected, she immediately sent soldiers to punish the city. This is the origin of the control of the Korean peninsula as written in the ancient histories, the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki. The polity of the land of the gods had continued with the line of the imperial succession, Koto, uninterrupted for more than 2,000 years, and because it was a rich country with a strong army, Fukoku Kyohei, there was no nearby country which viewed Japan with contempt. Kondo emphasized this point. Next, he indicated that Japan's polity was not expulsionism with closed ports, Joi Sako, and in ancient times there was much coming and going over a wide area. The imposition of Sakoku by the Tokugawa shogunate was unavoidable, and if Ieyasu had lived a little longer, the Japanese flag would have waved over the 5 continents, and Britain and other countries would have come to pay tribute. Again, he explained that the adoption of the Sakoku policy had been necessary because the spread of Christianity through missionary work had caused confusion in people's hearts, and there was a fear that unforeseen circumstances might occur. It was a logical development of the argument. Then the present-day Japan, Kondo continued, was a most suitable realm for becoming wealthy through trade, developing the navy to subdue the 4 barbarians, Shii. This was because it was close to China and India, and so the location was favorable. Then in Satsuma, there were good ports such as Yamagawa, which were particularly outstanding for taking on the world through trade. This is image 13, Kondo Chojiro. These points were mouth-watering for Europeans and Americans, so they could not be ignored. First, Korea should be invaded, then trading agencies should be established in many Chinese ports. The Chinese people impoverished by rebellions should be helped, and within 10 years, China would be persuaded by Japan to agree to an alliance to conquer Western countries. Kondo discussed these prospects. He continued, referring to conquering China and crossing the river Heilongjiang, Kokuryuko, reaching Russia and making an agreement with the Russian Empire, bringing Russian products as far as the river Heilong, causing Japanese ships to come up the river and organize trade there. Then, importing high-grade steel, Japan could manufacture large and small guns. Again, he had heard from Dutch and Americans at Nagasaki that it was not 10 years since a great war had erupted between Western powers and Russia, the Crimean War, 1853-56. Then a sufficient navy could be created, and if Russia lost, Japan might broker a peace agreement. If the Western powers lost, taking advantage of that, suddenly to invade Java, Luzon, and Sumatra and extend Japanese territory. This is what he said to Komatsu. It was indeed a policy of overseas invasion. Furthermore, Kondo thought that France would invade Korea and make an alliance with Russia. This was not true, and felt it was regrettable that Japan would be left behind by this initiative. Next spring, a fleet should be assembled and an invasion of Korea should begin. He expected the Satsuma clan to do this as soon as possible. This is none other than the Conquer Korea theory, Seikanron, and it was only a matter of time before the collision with Russia occurred, the Russo-Japanese War, 1904-05. The aim of the Kaientai was to invade the world. In this way, Kondo's statement with the background of increased authority, Kengi Kojo, of the emperor was, together with the approval of the commercial treaties, wealthy country, strong army, Fukoku Kyohei, and the strengthening or building of the navy, Kaigun Shinko, part of the so-called long-term expulsionism, Mirai Joi Shugi. It advocated first the conquest of Korea, Chosen, then of Qing China, Xin, to create an expulsionist empire with supremacy over East Asia. Moreover, beyond that, it also envisaged a confrontation with Russia, so it was expulsionism on an East Asian scale. In the rules of the Kaientai and Rikuentai of April 1867, KO3, the purpose of founding the Kaientai was stated to be to make profits from maritime transportation, to support the Tosa domain, to develop uncharted seas and islands, and to operate throughout the world. Hirao Michio, Sakamoto Ryoma, Kaientai Shimatsuki. Indeed, at the beginning of the sentence, the purpose is stated to be making profits from the transportation business, and it seems to be a trading association. But the author feels that this was not the real purpose, and what follows may be the true aim. In other words, the support of the Tosa clan or domain was not only in the form of maritime transportation, but had a military aspect. It was mainly intended to claim uncharted territory where the borders were unclear or the possession of the territory was not settled, mostly islands, so as to occupy this land and add it to Japan's sovereign territory. This seems to have been the future objective. Another purpose was to explore the situation of the world with a view to world invasion, Sekai Shinshutsu. Rather than a trading association, the Kaientai seems to have been more like a political organization which was the vanguard for invasion of East Asia. It is not difficult to imagine that Ryoma, who was acting jointly with Kondo, shared his awareness. Ryoma was certainly also an expulsionist. The diplomatic strategy of the Bakumatsu period was based on the East Asian Oriental expulsionism, Kai Shiso, which flowed through the Edo era. At that time, the Japanese were all, to a greater or lesser extent, expulsionists. Opening the country, Kaikoku, meant accepting commercial treaties with the aim of arming the country and building the navy, and after that, supremacy was to be established over East Asia. This was the same for Sakamoto Ryoma. He was essentially an expulsionist seeking to promote trade by opening the country and thereby building a navy. He took a leading role in this through the Kaientai, and he volunteered to be the vanguard in the realization of East Asian Oriental expulsionism. How did Choshu see the island of Takeshima? It is natural to consider Ryoma's strategy regarding Ezo, Hokkaido, and Takeshima, now called Uryongdo by the South Koreans, as part of this flow. I want to consider Ryoma's relationship with Takeshima in detail, but before discussing Ryoma's reclamation or invasion of Takeshima, it is necessary to mention the movements of the Choshu clan because this background greatly influenced Ryoma's movements. The central figure of the Choshu clan was Yoshida Shoin, 1830 to 1859, whom Ryoma also greatly admired. In a letter to Katsura Kogoro dated February 1858, Ansei 5, Shoin advocated, after considering the matter with Kusaka Genzui, that the shogunate clear the land on Takeshima for cultivation, kaikon. This was with the idea of making Takeshima into a forward base for the invasion of Korea and Manchuria, Manchu. Again, in a letter in June to Kusaka, Ryoma mentioned a rumor that Britain had occupied Takeshima, and he lamented that if by any chance that rumor should prove true, then Britain might attack Choshu at any time. Then for the Choshu clan, Manchuria and Ezo were far away, while Takeshima, Korea, and Peking or Beijing were close, and he judged that invading those places was an urgent topic. Then in a letter to Katsura in July, while accepting that in the Genroku period, 1688 to 1704, the Bakufu had recognized Takeshima as Korean territory, he was worried about it falling into foreign hands. He strongly expressed his sense of crisis that it was hard to sit and watch this happening from the viewpoint of defending Choshu, and he repeatedly stated that the clan should invade the island, nominally to clear it for cultivation. After that, in July 1860, Maen 1, at last Katsura Kogoro and Murata Zoroku, later named Omura Masujiro, 1825 to 1869, earnestly requested of the Bakufu permission to clear Takeshima for cultivation, but the application was rejected. Ryoma aimed to advance into Takeshima. Let us turn to talk of Ryoma. He refers to Takeshima in 1867, KO 3, 1, in a letter dated March 6 to a Chofu clansman Indo Ritsu, and 2, in a letter to the wealthy Shimonoseki merchant Ito Sukedayu, dated April 6, Miyaji Saichiro Ryoma no Tegami, Ryoma's letters. In the first letter, the Iro Hamaru, a steamer of the Osu guard station, Osu Bansho, 45 horsepower, 160 tons, three-masted screw-propelled, lent to the Kaientai by the Osu domain, is planned for the development, cultivation or reclamation, kaitaku, of Takeshima, and Ryoma asks for Indo and others to accompany him or recommendations for useful people to assist in the development and the offer of capital. In the second letter, he appealed earnestly for deferment of the repayment of loans. Regarding the purpose of the invasion of Takeshima, in the first letter was written masterless samurai, Rosei, should be ordered to develop, open up the land. The same as for Ezo, Hokkaido, Ryoma was planning to use masterless samurai, Ronin, as immigrants. For national defense, the important places, Ezo and Takeshima, had to be secured, and for their cultivation and defense, it was planned that the most elite troops of masterless samurai should be sent there, which was a truly novel idea. Here is image number 14, part of a letter from Sakamoto Ryoma to Indo Ritsu dated March the 6th, 1867. Takeshima is written at the end of the sixth vertical line from the left, Kyoto University Library Digital Archive. On the other hand, moving extreme masterless samurai away from the central government to the frontiers was also thought to be beneficial for the maintenance of domestic order within Japan. Furthermore, in the first letter is stated, "From the time when I first thought of crossing over to Ezo, Hokkaido, it has been my long-held desire over many years to open up undeveloped territories. I have staked my life on it, and even if I have to do it on my own, I intend to achieve it." It can be interpreted that the opening of new territories mentioned here is the same as to develop uncharted seas and islands and to operate throughout the world in the rules of the Kaientai and Rikuentai. In other words, Ryoma's plan was that Takeshima was to be regarded as Japanese territory, and first the Irohamaru with Ryoma and the Kaientai aboard should go there, occupy and cultivate it, and once incorporated, a forward base should be established for the invasion of Korea and China. In the letter, this was not mentioned, perhaps because there was a tacit understanding about this management strategy of East Asia, or perhaps Ryoma wanted to emphasize the utilization of the masterless samurai. Indeed, there were careless aspects to Ryoma's plan for the occupation of Takeshima, but it is clear that he was serious about occupying it. Furthermore, the big problem is whether Ryoma was aware that Takeshima was Korean territory. In other words, there is the problem of Ryoma's awareness of borders. As author, I believe that Ryoma knew very well at this time that Takeshima was Korean territory. This is because since the time of Yoshida Shoin, Ryoma had continued contact with Choshu clan members who had that firm awareness, and he surely must have known this. Within the Choshu domain, starting with Shoin, his pupils at the Shoka Sonjuku, including Kusaka, Takasugi and others, had the same awareness, and Katsura and Omura Masujiro also. Given the networks of the time, it was well known within the clan that Takeshima was Korean territory. Ryoma had very close relations with the Choshu clan members, and furthermore, just before, received a lot of information from Inoue Kaoru, 1836 to 1915. It is quite inconceivable that Inoue did not know. Just because it is not mentioned in Ryoma's letter, that does not mean he did not know. Iwasaki Yataro stands on the island of Takeshima. In fact, Ryoma never got to Takeshima because the Irohamaru, which he was planning to use, sank. On April 19, 1867, KO3, Ryoma set sail in the Irohamaru from Nagasaki to transport guns, teppo, to Osaka. Before departure on that day, Ryoma consulted Iwasaki Yataro about the payment of wages of the Kaientai and requested a loan of 50 yen, and Iwasaki gave him the money on his own judgment as a parting gift, senbetsu. At that time, the two men spoke for a long time while drinking alcohol. It can be imagined that Ryoma said a great deal about the activities and policy, Katsudo Hoshin, of the Kaientai, and in that context, of course, Takeshima would have been mentioned. From this point, only speculation is possible, but Ryoma's magnificent dreams probably touched the heartstrings, kinsen, of Iwasaki. Then he resolved to accompany Ryoma to Takeshima and earnestly requested this, which was granted. However, the two men had different standpoints, and Iwasaki could not take part in the planning of the Kaientai. He moved the clan and persuaded the boss Goto Shojiro to procure another vessel for the clan. After Iwasaki obtained Goto's agreement, he prepared to join Ryoma in the Iroha Maru at Nagasaki. Then unexpected sad news reached him. On April 23rd, the Iroha Maru collided with the Kishu domain's Meiko Maru. While Ryoma and the crew were all saved, all of the cargo sank. It was a great disaster. Sanji. Image number 15 is a bronze statue of Iwasaki Yataro at Aki City. At first, there were repeated negotiations for compensation at Tomono-ura in the Seto Inland Sea with the Kishu domain, which was one of the three Tokugawa branch families, Gosanke. The negotiations were difficult, and they were moved to Nagasaki. Ship's logs, Kokai Nishi, were compared, and there were intense discussions about the cause and responsibility for the collision. Ryoma made light of the matter, saying that, as an indemnity for the sunk vessel, I will not take money but your land, and made use of ballads sung in red light districts to manipulate public opinion, and quoted the law of nations, Bankoku Koho. Ryoma, with his superior and tough strategies and negotiating skills, succeeded in obtaining compensation to the value of 70,000 ryo. This incident is also important as Japan's first trial of a maritime accident. Because the Irohamaru had been lost, Ryoma was unable to fulfill his promise to Iwasaki. On the other hand, Iwasaki inherited Ryoma's strong will, and as an official work of the Tosa domain, on April 30th, he set out to explore Takeshima. He returned to Nagasaki on May 6th, but looking at his diary for that period, there are no entries. They may have been deliberately erased. Anyway, we do not know the details. One theory suggests that Iwasaki took a signpost with him to declare that Takeshima was Japanese territory. Anyway, Ryoma's idea was incomplete and the plan was trivialized, but it was realized by Iwasaki Yataro. Ryoma as a pioneer of long-term expulsionism. Mirai Joy. Finally, let us confirm once more Ryoma's ideas of expulsionism, Joi, opening the country, Kaikoku, and national borders, Kokkyo. Ryoma's expulsionism was purely and simply to drive out the foreign barbarians, Iteki. This was no different to the average Japanese at that time. It was the standard notion controlled by East Asian Oriental expulsionism and influenced by late Mito studies. Japan was at the center of the world and was educating the surrounding countries of East Asia with the aim of being a suzerain state, Choshu koku, at the center of a tributary system, Sakuho Taisei. For Ryoma, opening the country was a strategy for realizing expulsionism. Through his contacts with Katsukaishu, he dreamed again and again of arming the country to build an expulsionist empire, Joi Teikoku, and he felt this more strongly than anybody else. And he was aware that to make Japan into a great military power, it was necessary to build up the navy, and there was nothing for it but to make a wealthy country with a strong army, Fukoku Hyohei. For this purpose, commercial treaties must be concluded with the profits not to be monopolized by the bakufu, but to be distributed fairly to all the domains so that the whole of Japan could be armed. Opening the country was necessary to realize expulsionism and to construct an East Asian Oriental empire. For Ryoma, national borders were a recognition of the current framework, wakugumi, but for the construction of a long-term expulsionist empire, they were the object of continual expansion. The Kaientai was a trading association, but also had elements of a navy, and it aimed to discover and develop uncharted and undeveloped islands, Mikai no Tosho. It secured Ezo, Hokkaido, for Japan, and the beginning was the incorporation Hennyu of Takeshima. At that time, the fact of his utilization of masterless samurai who had left their clans, Roshi, was later connected to the use by the Meiji government of peasant soldiers, colonizers, Tondenhei, and the policy of sending troops to Taiwan Shuppei. It is obvious that Ryoma had Takeshima in his sights as the first step to invading Korea, Chosen. Then about 40 years later, the Meiji state annexed Korea, Kankoku, and realized the dreams of Ryoma and other pioneers. Then the awareness of foreign countries, Taigai Ninshiki, was further radicalized and developed into a desire first to make China and then the Southeast Asian nations into vassal states. In other words, Japan broke away from being a small expulsionist empire, a Japanese-style expulsionist empire, to a great East Asian empire, Towa no Daiteikoku, which was the final goal. And that is the end of chapter 3. There is chapter 4. So we will stop the share here. And I will see you again soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.